May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our redeemer. Amen. Well, this is no ordinary Good Friday, and many of us are deeply sad that we cannot gather together today in church, and that we will not be able to gather on Sunday. But in a sense, we may be better prepared this year to contemplate the cross than we have ever been. The pandemic has revealed to us how deeply connected we are as human beings across all borders and boundaries. We are deeply aware of the well of human suffering and vulnerability that we all draw from. And in this sober spirit, we come to contemplate the cross of Jesus, the meeting point between the suffering of humanity and the suffering of God. Around us, people are wondering, where is God in all this? And you might be wondering that too. What the Gospels tell us is that the place to find God is at the very centre of human suffering. All four Gospels agree that Jesus was crucified as one of a number of condemned people. The other three Gospels call these people criminals or bandits. The emphasis there is on Jesus dying among sinners, the one without guilt identifying with the guilty. But in John's Gospel, those crucified around Jesus are simply called others. Instead of focusing on the criminality of Jesus' companions in death, John focuses simply on their humanity. In John's Gospel, Jesus dies between two human beings. He dies at the centre of human suffering. Psalm 22 is used in all the Gospels to interpret Jesus' death. Matthew and Mark quote verse 1, which we all know well, my God, why have you forsaken me? John quotes verse 18, for my clothing they cast lots. These references to different parts of the psalm show us that the whole psalm was central to early Christian understandings of Jesus' suffering and death. And so since then, we have tended to read this psalm as though it was written about Jesus, as though it was always meant to be a prediction of the Messiah's death. The problem with taking Psalm 22 to be just about Jesus is that we forget that it was actually about us first, about the grief and fear and anger of every human being. This psalm expresses our experience of suffering and abandonment, and that is what Jesus entered into on the cross. Just as Jesus took on human flesh and entered our embodied world, Jesus took on human suffering and entered the tormented world of Psalm 22. Before the first century, this psalm was not read as a prophecy, but as a cry of anguish that every human could use at a time of pain and abandonment. The psalm was not waiting for Jesus to fulfill it. It had been crying out to God in the voice of human anguish for centuries before Jesus' birth. And in death, Jesus joined his voice to ours in lament at the grief of humanity. Where is God in a pandemic? God is in the trauma of ICU. God is in the tears of grieving families. God is in the heartbreak of centre-linked queues. We know that because Jesus died at the centre of human suffering. And where is it that we feel most grief, most fear, most anger? Wouldn't you agree? It's in our families. Right now, families are separated by closed borders and grandparents are not able to see their grandchildren. So we feel this pain deeply. Jesus was also part of a family, and he died as the son of a mother. At the foot of the cross, Jesus' mother felt utter devastation. Jesus was her eldest son. And in her culture, even if his birth was perfectly ordinary, that would have made him her delight and her hope. His prosperity was her prosperity. His glory was her glory. His suffering, her suffering. The sword that pierced his side entered her soul. And all of us who are parents know something of what that's like, don't we? But in this time of agony, Jesus speaks to her and creates a new family. Jesus' mother is not alone at the foot of the cross, but the people who really should have been there are nowhere to be seen. Jesus' biological brothers and sisters, it seems, have deserted him and her. This would have added another level of agony to both Jesus and his mother. There are hints in the Gospels of a rift in this family, a fracture caused by conflict over this controversial son and brother. The cross would have brought that conflict to crisis point. Was Jesus' mother alone now, without family support? Jesus' words imply that she may have been. So Jesus creates a new family for her. His mother is now to be mother to the disciple Jesus loved. And the disciple Jesus loved is to be a son to Jesus' mother. Have you ever noticed that these two key characters in the Gospel of John are never given names? They are simply the mother of Jesus and the disciple Jesus loved. This allows each of us to place ourselves in the story. We are the disciples Jesus loved, and we are mothers to those disciples. Throughout Lent, we have been seeing that the call to discipleship takes us on a path of sacrifice. In this current crisis, while others might batten down and concentrate on staying safe, we are called to find creative ways to keep serving our communities, ways to keep looking outward even when the doors are closed. Choosing to follow Christ in a time of pandemic may bring griefs and losses we are not ready to imagine yet. Disciples need people in their churches to be mothers to them, to stand beside their crosses and celebrate their courage while grieving with them over what they have lost. We also need sons like the beloved disciple. The good son protects his mother and loves her with deep affection and loyalty. We are entering a time in which our older members are particularly vulnerable. We are called to protect and care for them as sons and daughters. We also have become sisters and brothers to one another at the cross, because Jesus made himself our brother, and God, his Father, our Father. By entering utterly into the reality of human experience, right to the center of human suffering, Jesus formed a bond with humanity stronger than any bond of biology. So where is God in a pandemic? God the Son is to be found at the center of human suffering. God the Holy Spirit is to be found within us, crying out to God when we have no words. And God the Father is to be found through that big, beautiful, dysfunctional family that we call church. The Lord be with you. Amen.